Welcome to Bedtime Sleep Stories for Grown-Ups by Beezy Honey.net. I hope you are settled in for the night and are ready to go on a journey of deep and relaxing sleep. We've put these special bedtime sleep stories for adults for anyone out there dealing with insomnia, sleep problems, sleep deprivation, anxiety, pain, or any other kind of issues preventing you from getting enough sleep and being fully rested and ready to take on the day. We truly hope these stories can help you achieve the elusive, deep, and uninterrupted sleep. Please enjoy this episode and consider subscribing to our channel to support and help the spread of these sleep stories to people all over the world with the same issues that brought you to this video. Thank you for your support and a deep and uninterrupted sleep to you tonight. Let's begin. Chapter 14. The landscape shifted as the group pressed forward. The lush greenery of the forest gradually gave way to a barren, rocky terrain, an expanse of gray, studded with jagged cliffs and steep ridges. The air became thinner, crisper, and the temperature dropped noticeably. Each breath became a little harder to draw, the icy tendrils of the air tugging at their lungs. Zara led the way, her demeanor stoic and unfazed, despite the harsh conditions. She had traded her lightweight travel clothes for warmer attire, a thick fur cloak clasped around her shoulders, her dark hair swept back and bound in a high ponytail. "This terrain," she commented, her voice steady against the whistling wind. "It's known as the Grey Waste. Not many venture here, but the path we need to take to reach our destination goes through it." Callum, his face half hidden beneath the hood of his own cloak, raised an eyebrow. "And why is that?" Zara cast him a sideways glance. "Because sometimes the more challenging the path, the more rewarding the destination." The group fell silent, each lost in their own thoughts. This was no leisurely stroll. This was a journey fraught with danger, the stakes higher than ever, but they pressed on. There was no turning back now. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long, slanting shadows that crawled across the rocky landscape. The light faded, replaced by a cold, eerie half-darkness. The terrain became even more treacherous underfoot, with loose stones and steep inclines. More than once someone slipped, only to be caught by another member of the group. It was during one of these moments, as Tobias stumbled and Lena reached out to steady him, that they saw it. A flicker of movement in the twilight, a flash of silvery white. "What was that?" Lena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," Tobias replied, his gaze locked on the direction of the movement. "But we need to be on guard. It might not be friendly." Indeed, the Grey Waste was not known for its hospitable inhabitants. The creatures that dwelled here were as harsh and unforgiving as the land itself. This was a realization that landed heavily in their hearts, reminding them that they were far from safety. And so they journeyed on, their senses heightened, their hands never straying far from their weapons. But as the hours passed, and they moved deeper into the barren expanse, a thought began to gnaw at them. Would they make it out of the Grey Waste alive? Or would they, like so many others before them, succumb to its merciless embrace? The lesson here was a clear one. No path is without its challenges, but it's how one navigates these challenges that truly matters. It's easy to journey on when the path is clear and the destination is within sight, but when the way forward is fraught with danger and the end is uncertain, that's when one's character truly shines. Will they press on despite the odds, or will they admit defeat? Their actions in the face of adversity would define not only their journey, but also who they are as individuals. After all, it's not the destination, but the journey that shapes us. But as the darkness deepened around them, and the wind picked up, whipping their cloaks around them, they knew that they were about to face a test like no other. And as a chilling howl echoed in the distance, bouncing off the cliffs and causing a shiver to run down their spines, they could only hope they were ready. The chilling howl echoed once more, sending another shiver down their spines. It was closer now, a primal sound that hinted at a creature not of their world. Lena glanced nervously at the others, her hand inching towards the hilt of her blade. "We need to keep moving," Zara stated, her tone firm. "We don't want to be caught out in the open if that thing decides to come our way." Callum nodded, his usually jovial expression replaced with one of intense concentration. "Zara's right, we need to find shelter, and fast." As if on cue, Tobias pointed towards a cluster of jagged rocks in the distance. "There, that should provide some cover." With newfound urgency, they made their way towards the rocky outcrop, their pace quickening despite the treacherous terrain. As they moved, The howl echoed yet again, the sound bouncing off the stony walls and filling the cold air. The realization that they were not alone in this desolate landscape weighed heavily on their minds. Reaching the outcrop, they huddled together, using the rocks as a shield against the biting wind. In the dim light, their faces were drawn, the gravity of their situation mirrored in their eyes. "Rest," Zara instructed, her voice barely above a whisper. "We need to conserve our strength." Even in this dire situation, the group found solace in each other's presence. They huddled closer, drawing comfort from the shared warmth. Their quiet conversations a welcome distraction from the unforgiving landscape surrounding them. Throughout the night they kept vigilant, their sleep light and restless. Every rustle of wind, every shift of rock jolted them awake, their hearts pounding in their chests. But the creature that had howled in the distance did not make an appearance, and for that they were grateful. Morning dawned with an icy chill, the first rays of light casting long, harsh shadows across the gray waste. With a collective sigh of relief, they rose, their bodies stiff from the cold and the hard ground. "We should get moving," Zara advised, her gaze scanning their surroundings. "We've still got a long way to go." They nodded in agreement, packing their few belongings and preparing for another day's journey. The shadow of the previous night's fear lingered, a sobering reminder of the dangers that lay ahead. Yet, even in the face of adversity, they remained resolute. Their determination was a flame that refused to be extinguished, fueled by the hope of a better tomorrow. They would traverse the gray waste, they would reach their destination, they would not be deterred. As they set off, a profound lesson echoed in their minds. Strength does not come from physical capacity alone. It also comes from an indomitable will. The trials they faced were more than physical. They were a test of their resolve, their unity, and their spirit. And as they looked out upon the barren expanse stretching out before them, they understood that while the journey was challenging, it was shaping them, making them stronger, forging them into the people they were meant to be. But as they took their first steps, a figure loomed in the distance, its form a mere silhouette against the rising sun. Was it the creature that had haunted their night, or perhaps a new challenge that awaited them in the gray waste? Their hearts pounded in their chests as they moved closer, their hands on their weapons, their eyes narrowed in determination. What lay ahead was unknown, but they knew they would face it, whatever it was, together. As the silhouette grew in size, the group tightened their formation. Callum and Zara took the front, their weapons at the ready, while Lena and Tobias fell behind, their eyes scanning the area for any signs of an ambush. The figure stood unmoving, a dark spot against the increasingly bright sky. As they neared, details started to take form. It was a humanoid, dressed in tattered clothes that flapped in the wind. His head was bowed, his hands resting on a worn-out staff. "Wait!" Lena suddenly called out. The rest of the group halted, turning to look at her. She took a few steps forward, her eyes wide with recognition. It's Roshan." The group collectively gasped. Roshan was an elder from their village, a kind-hearted soul who often entertained the children with stories of his youth. He was believed to be lost in the gray waste years ago, a victim of its harsh conditions. Roshan slowly lifted his head as Lena approached him, his face worn and weathered, but eyes sparkling with life. "Lena," he greeted in a raspy voice, "I was wondering when I'd see a familiar face again." He went on to recount his story of survival in the gray waste, how he learned to adapt to its harsh conditions, how he found strength within himself he didn't know he possessed. His tale was filled with hardship and loneliness, yet he held an air of calm acceptance about him. His story was a testament to the human will to survive, to adapt and overcome. Even in the most dire of circumstances, he held on to hope, never surrendering to despair. As the group listened, a profound lesson began to form in their minds. In the face of adversity, it's not the physical strength, but the strength of the spirit that matters most. True courage is not about never being afraid, but about facing fear head-on, about finding the resilience within oneself to continue on despite everything. But even as they took in Roshan's wisdom, their vigilance never wavered. The gray waste was still a treacherous place, filled with hidden dangers and unexpected turns. And as Roshan pointed towards the heart of the waste, his face took on a somber expression. "I am glad to see you, but you must be careful. There's a storm coming." As if on cue, the winds around them began to pick up, the sky darkening ominously. The quiet of the waste was suddenly filled with a growing roar, a monstrous storm forming in the distance. Their hearts pounded in their chests as they watched the storm approach, Roshan's words ringing in their ears. What new challenges would this storm bring? What trials would they need to face? They didn't know, but they knew they'd face them together, come what may. The storm was not long in coming. Dust and debris filled the air, visibility dropped to near zero, and the winds howled like a wild beast. Lena and Tobias used their magic to form a protective shield around the group, but it took a significant toll on their energy. Callum and Zara, even though they were non-magic users, helped by guiding the group using the last known direction from Roshan. The old man himself seemed unfazed by the storm, walking with a slow but steady pace, as if he had done it 100 times before. Roshan's words before the storm hit echoed in their minds. Remember, it's not about outrunning the storm, it's about enduring it. The storm is as much a part of the gray waste as the barren lands and the ever-night sky. It tests us, yes, but it also makes us stronger. That's another lesson you must learn. And so they endured. Hours felt like days as they pushed through the storm. It was relentless and unforgiving, but they found strength in Roshan's words and in each other. After what felt like an eternity, the storm began to subside, leaving them in the eerily quiet and desolate expanse of the gray waste once again. They were exhausted, their energy depleted, but they were alive, and they were together. They set up a temporary camp to rest and recover. As they sat around a small magical flame conjured by Tobias, Roshan told them stories of the gray waste, of its mysteries and its wonders, of the creatures that dwelled within, and of the ancient magic that was said to lie at its heart. His tales were strange and fantastical, but they lent an almost otherworldly beauty to the harsh landscape around them. They learned to see the gray waste not just as a dangerous, barren land, but also as a place of profound resilience and strength, and that, in itself, was a lesson worth learning. However, as Roshan's tales came to an end, a new danger emerged. A low rumble echoed through the waste, the ground beneath them trembling slightly. Their eyes widened in shock as a massive creature, larger than anything they had ever seen, rose from the dust and debris in the distance. "By the ancients," Roshan whispered, his eyes filled with fear and awe. "It's the Titan of the waste." The Titan was a creature of legends, a beast so old it was said to have walked the earth when it was still young. And now it was standing before them, its massive form blocking out the horizon. The enormity of the situation dawned upon them. They were in the heart of the gray waste, faced with a creature of myth and legend. This was no longer just a journey or a quest. It was a fight for survival, a test of their courage, strength, and resilience. And as they stood there, looking up at the towering Titan, they knew their trials were far from over. As the Titan roared, its sound echoing through the expanse of the gray waste, the group fell into silence, the weight of their situation settling upon them. The enormity of the creature was humbling, and they realized they were facing a force of nature, ancient and unyielding. Yet even in the face of such overwhelming odds, they knew they could not give in to fear. "Remember what we've learned so far," Lena said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "We face this together." Roshan, even with his wealth of knowledge and experience, seemed at a loss. "I've heard tales of the Titan, but I've never seen one up close. We must tread carefully." While the others planned, Zara's attention was on Callum. The usually boisterous and headstrong warrior was unusually quiet. His gaze was fixed on the colossal beast before them, and there was an intensity in his eyes she had never seen before. "What's going on, Callum?" she asked, worry seeping into her voice. Callum was silent for a moment before he turned to her, his eyes resolute. "I have to face it." Zara was taken aback. "What? Are you crazy? That thing is—" "Huge and deadly, I know," Callum interrupted her. "But this is why I'm here. This is why I've trained and fought all my life, to face challenges that seem impossible. And right now, this is my challenge." His determination was infectious, and it ignited a spark of hope in the group. They knew Callum was a formidable warrior, but this was something else entirely. He was willing to face a legendary beast, not for glory or honor, but because he believed it was the right thing to do. Their resolve strengthened. They decided on a plan. Lena and Tobias would use their magic to distract and impede the Titan, while Callum engaged it directly. Zara, with her sharpshooter skills, would provide support, and Roshan, with his knowledge of the waste, would guide them. The plan was risky, and they knew it. But they also knew it was their only chance. With a final nod to each other, they prepared to face the Titan. As they moved into position, a thought crossed Zara's mind, one that would stay with her as they battled the Titan and beyond. The courage to face one's fears, to confront the impossible, and rise to the challenge was what truly made a warrior. And in that moment, she saw Callum not just as a comrade, but as a true warrior of the waste. As the battle commenced, the Titan roared again, the sound shaking the ground beneath their feet. But they were ready. This was their fight, their trial, their moment, and they would face it together. The battle was nothing short of epic. Lena and Tobias conjured a flurry of spells, bolts of energy ricocheting off the Titan's stony hide. Roshan barked directions, steering them away from the most perilous areas of the waste. And Zara, her rifle steady in her hands, kept up a constant barrage, every bullet chipping away at the monstrous beast. But it was Callum who stood at the forefront, the lone warrior against the Titan of the grey waste. He moved with a grace and agility that belied his size, each swing of his blade a deadly dance. The Titan swiped and roared, but Callum never wavered. There was a fire in his eyes, a determination that was impossible to extinguish. Hours turned into minutes as the battle waged on. The group was pushed to their limits, but they held their ground. They were a team, and they wouldn't leave one of their own behind. In the end, it was Callum who dealt the final blow. With a roar that rivaled that of the Titan, he plunged his blade into the creature's chest. The Titan stumbled, let out a final deafening roar, and then fell, shaking the earth as it crashed to the ground. Exhausted but victorious, the group let out a cheer. They had done it. They had defeated the Titan. As they gathered around Callum, clapping him on the back and offering congratulations, Zara noticed something. Callum was silent. His gaze was on the fallen Titan, and there was an odd look in his eyes. It was not the elation of victory, but a strange mix of regret and sorrow. "Callum," she asked, laying a hand on his arm, "what's wrong?" He didn't respond for a moment, his eyes still on the Titan. Then he sighed, looking back at her. "We won," he said, his voice hollow. "But at what cost?" The group fell silent. As they looked at the fallen Titan, they couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. It had been a terrifying foe, yes, but it was also a creature of the waste, a part of the harsh, yet majestic ecosystem they were exploring. Zara put an arm around Callum, offering silent comfort. There were no words to soothe the complexity of their victory, but they found solace in their shared understanding. They had won the battle, but they had also lost a part of the waste. In that moment, they understood the profound lesson that the waste had to teach. Victory often came with a price, and sometimes that price was more than just physical exhaustion or resources. Sometimes it was a piece of the world they loved, a piece of themselves. As they stood there, victorious yet grieving, they pledged to remember this lesson, to carry it with them as they continued their journey. We've now come to the end of this chapter. Please stay tuned for the next chapter of this story to be published in the upcoming days. In the meantime, please enjoy the sleep music that's about to begin.